My name is Emily Kasriel. I work at the BBC and have been instigating and running solution-focused journalism in BBC News. And I have done a lot of work in my home department, so to speak, is the international, the world service part of the BBC, on TV, on radio and digital. I have been working to get more journalists to incorporate solutions thinking in their journalism through a host of different ways. When I first started working on solutions-focused journalism, I gave a lot of workshops to BBC teams, BBC News teams, from breakfast or people in BBC Scotland or in our offices in Delhi or in Nairobi, and encourage them to think around the possibility of including more solutions, not just problems, in their whole framing of what news is. Since then, I was trying to create more of an impact within the BBC. And a colleague of mine, actually, from the BBC Persian service said, you've got to do one season and you've got to look at air pollution. And at the time, this was a number of years ago, I thought, air pollution? And I started investigating it, and it seemed such a perfect way to get people to engage in solutions, because air pollution very much doesn't have a simple solution. There are many different causes, and there are many different ways that communities across the world, as well as governments, as well as companies, actions that they can take to reduce air pollution. And so that's what we presented in that season. Audiences are not only interested in problems, although they might be more alert to problems, because we are attuned to be more watchful of tigers than we are to find berries, because if we come across a tiger in the savannah with our brains formed 10,000 years ago, we've got to flee or else we die. And that's why we're more tuned to watch out for tigers and remember and be interested in problems. I've also then have long been interested in the area of ways to resolve conflict, ways to get people to engage with each other across divides. So for a number of years, I've been running a BBC Crossing Divide season, which has been telling stories of the ways that people engage across divides, be they race, class, politics, nationality, and showing the story, which doesn't mean that they agree, but that they have curiosity to understand the other perspective. And we have been telling stories of those journeys. And through working on that, I then became interested in deep listening as a way to train people in an approach in order that they can have those better conversations. And I think those are all under the umbrella of solutions journalism. I should say, though, in a very good way, that I'm not the only person in the BBC working on solutions. What's been fantastic over the number of years that I've been working in this space at BBC News, so many other people have become interested in doing more stories involving solutions. Crossing Divides is all about people coming together across. So when we ran the BBC Crossing Divide season, it was super exciting because BBC local radio operates in 39 local radio stations across England. And what happened is that each of those local radio stations picked 3 local conflicts. It could be about whether or not to put up a statue of Margaret Thatcher. It could be stories about whether to eat meat or vegans because of a lot of dairy farming and meat farming in a particular district. So they picked 3 local conflicts, and then I worked with teams across all 39 local radio stations to each find 3 of these local conflicts and then 2 individuals to meet and talk about that conflict and have that Crossing Divides conversation. And that was aired on the radio and encouraged audiences to have their own Crossing Divides conversations as well. And those Crossing Divide stories did tremendously well. Those Crossing Divide stories do very well for our audiences. So for the Crossing Divide season, 1 year, we had 50 million page views on BBC website and 50 million video views on BBC Social. Well, journalists think about news, they think about headlines, they think about something happening quickly in order to be there first. And so the approach tends to prioritize bad news because it's more dramatic. We know that pictures sell. A picture, an image of an earthquake, whereas the slow process of rebuilding isn't as sexy and can be harder for journalists to think that audiences might be interested. You have to do more homework in order to find a good solution story. The other thing is, it's easier as a journalist to find a problem and be able to say, look, something's not working. It's tougher. And I think a lot of journalists feel a little more hesitant about having to make sure that it is working, and how to feel that they rigorously can demonstrate that it is working. So for example, if I was to look at my computer laptop in front of me now, I could be comfortable in saying, look, I can see some specks of dirt on it and I can point to those specks of dirt. It's a lot easier. It's a lot harder for me to say there are no specks of dirt on this laptop, because I then have to search every little bit of the laptop in order to demonstrate. The good news is that you can report a solution story at any stage of the solution. You don't have to wait until it's complete and perfect. You just need to share that with the audience. So if it's an early stage solution story, you need to explain to the audiences that you don't yet have evidence, but it looks exciting. And you can talk about anecdotal evidence, or you can cover a solution at a later stage whereby you have evidence. And of course, the gold standard of evidence is randomized controlled trials, which aren't there for every solution. Again, the importance is to challenge any solution, not feel that you have to be a salesperson for the solution, but you can share with the audience. And People Fixing the World, which is a brilliant program on the BBC World Service, on digital and on the radio, is fantastic at in-depth, rigorously looking at solutions and asking the tough questions, as well as, of course, the most important and toughest question is, can a solution scale, or does it only work in a particular place because of unusual contexts? I think that solution stories can be told in any format. I think it can be challenging to tell a solution story well in, for example, 3.5 minutes, 3 minutes in a TV package. I think it can be done. You're not able to investigate and rigorously look at every aspect of that solution, but you are able to convey what's working and why, and what perhaps isn't working so well, as well as the stage of that solution through a solution's trajectory. I think if you're writing an in-depth text piece or an in-depth radio piece, it is obviously more encompassing. You can tell more angles of a story, but I wouldn't hesitate to think that you could tell things in a more short scale format. It is harder and takes more experience to do so, but it's not impossible at all. And we've successfully done many solution stories in that way. And when I've worked with journalists, I've said to them, don't just think because you're doing a solution story, you can throw out your BBC editorial rigor. Keep it there. Solution stories need to be as rigorous, if not more so, than the usual stories that you might tell to your audiences. I think making sure that the problem is one that your audiences are interested in figuring out to solve, so it's relevant to them, same as any story that you do, is very, very important. We've used Harkin sometimes at the BBC, for example, with the air pollution story, in order to reach out to audiences and find out from them the big questions. So, for example, when I did So I Can Breathe, or looking at solutions to air pollution, we found out that many audiences, that many people in our audiences were interested in looking at trees as a solution to air pollution. In fact, in most cases, trees absorb very, very little air pollution, even if they're beautiful. And there are a lot of other very, very good reasons to have trees in the world.